Yo, what is up, guys? It's John here, and today we'll be talking about the best weapons in Deep Rock Galactic currently. This is just before the new patch comes out for Season 3, with all the new grenades being introduced. This is just going to be going over secondaries and primaries for all the dwarves and classes in the game currently. So, we're just going to start up kind of like we did with the Shadowline tier list. We'll just go from left to the right, and I definitely want to make a couple more tier lists for Deep Rock because I love this game. It's amazing, and it just gets better with every single update. Guys, if you haven't played Deep Rock Galactic, check it out. It might be on sale right now. I'm going to link it in the description. I'm sure if you're looking at this video, though, you probably own the game, and you can praise it for how amazing it is. But with all that said, let's just crack straight into it, guys. I want to say this, obviously, just like any other tier list, this is just purely my opinion. A lot of you guys might think that these weapons are better than what I say. But this is just taking into account the weapons that are in the game, the overclocks currently for them, and kind of how I play. So first off, we got the auto cannon. This is a gunner tier 2 weapon, so it's the second one that you unlock. It's not the default. I personally don't love this weapon. I don't know. I'm gonna put it in C tier. I'm not a huge fan of the auto cannon. I'm not a huge fan of the overclocks for it. I really only play the gunner one way. Yeah, let's not even go left to right. We'll just go from the classes. So since we're on gunner, because I'm already on the topic of talking about him, I don't like the autocannon. I'm really not a huge fan of the autocannon, and that brings me to the hurricane. I don't like the hurricane at all. The hurricane, in my opinion, is awful. I know there's going to be people that are like, what the fuck? Like, these are amazing weapons. Some people love this weapon in its S tier. Some people love the hurricane in its S tier. To me, I'm not a fan of either of these guns just because of how much I love the minigun. The minigun is easily the S tier out of these. I can play this gun so many different ways. I have fire builds with this where you use the instant grenade and the over aggressive venting. Just there's so many different ways to play with the minigun, and I really just love the way that the overclocks work on it. In my opinion, it's the most versatile of his weapons, and it fits his class so much better, obviously. I love the minigun, just straight up. Burst fire that he has. This a B tier? We'll give this an A tier. This weapon, you can spec it to be able to, like... Usually what I do is, I'll put this on the secondary, obviously, and I'll use the burst rifle. Either I'll have a build for it where I have tons of ammunition with it, and I can use it to kill grunts, like, just super easily. I never have an issue with killing grunts. Or, I'll spec it so that it has a lot of weak spot damage, and we can easily take care of, like, Praetorians and stuff. Because this thing can literally 2-burst Praetorians. It's insane. And if you're playing on, like, a critical anomaly with critical weakness, this thing is just a nutso weapon. I really like it. Definitely high up there in strength. The arms coil gun. I want to give this... I'm going to give this an A tier. A tier for sure. I think all of his secondaries are A tier worthy. I'm just going to get the Bulldog. I think that all of his secondaries are worthy of A tier because they can all be kind of used in different ways. There's quite a few different builds with each of them. I think the coil gun... I don't know. We'll actually put the coil gun in B tier just because I think the Bulldog and the burst fire are way more versatile. The coil gun is good, but I'm not as big of a fan of the coil gun as I am these two. Now, I will say I like the looks and the handling of the coil gun more, but as far as versatility, no, I can't do that. I think they all belong in A tier. I can't even do that to myself. I like them too much. Personally, like, and I want to say this to you guys, if you think that just because this is in a D tier, it's not good against enemies or it's not meta, dude, there's no meta for Deep Rock. There's obviously some things that are better than others, but every single one of these weapons is going to perform effectively to a degree. It's just that, in my opinion, I'm not a huge fan of the heavy autocannon. I'm not really a huge fan of the hurricane guided rocket system. Maybe you guys can drop some comments below and let me know what you use on them to make them, you know, something that's your favorite weapon. Because to me, I just really don't have any builds on them that I love to play with. Next up is going to be Scout. We're starting off with the Bolt Shark. I love this weapon. I absolutely love the Bodkin bolts. I love the ricochet on the arrows. It's super powerful. The pheromone bolts are just incredibly strong to drag aggro away. The magnetic bolts are great. There's so much to say about the Bolt Shark, man. I could be here forever. I could make a whole video about how good the Bolt Shark is. The Bolt Shark is incredibly strong. Really, I love it. I think it's something that the Scout did need and can use a lot. The jury-rigged boomstick. Another S tier, just incredible secondary. I cannot praise this thing enough as well. Has great ammo capacity, does some extremely high damage when you spec it that way. Incredibly fun overclocks, just a really good overall weapon. I really enjoy the jury-rigged boomstick. Skip to the other one, the Zukobs. I don't like these. They're C tier. No, I will say when I say I don't like these, that doesn't just mean like, dude, the Zukobs fucking suck. They're the worst thing ever. Like, I hate them. The reason I don't like these weapons is because I feel like they burn through ammo so quick, and they're really not that good with the way that I play the Scout. I personally don't love to switch to his secondaries just to clear a little bit of grunts out, because for me, I feel like this secondary is way too much like his primaries. He already has machine guns or rifles that kind of deal with grunts very easily. The Zukobs don't really do anything for me that I like. Now, there is the explosive reload and the cryo reload builds for this, which make them, a lot better. Definitely could argue for the B tier. To me, I don't like them that much. I praise these two weapons so much that this is really all I use. I do have a niche build with the Zukobs, and if I'm getting bored of the other weapons, I'll definitely try these out and use them more. They are good. They can be good, but to me, they're kind of a C tier weapon. The Deep Core GK2. The Deep Core, man. I'll put the Deep Core in B tier. I don't like the Deep Core ever since the Drac was released, because the Deep Core was a pretty good weapon, and I love Bullets of Mercy. And obviously, it seems as if every time we have a new patch come out with new weapons, we have a new negative effect that we can impair enemies with. So that makes Bullets of Mercy a little bit more viable, a little bit better than it was the last patch. Now, that being said, the Deep Core has never been a bad weapon. It's just been kind of mediocre, and that's just my feeling. I know there's some people who still love the Deep Core and hate the Drac. To me, the Drac 25, the newest primary for the Scout, is just out of this world good, and I don't even know why they gave him such a good primary, because Scout to me is one of the most overloaded kits. He has the best grenades, he has the best secondaries. Well, I can't say best secondaries, look at Engineer. We'll get to that, but he's just so good all around. But the Deep Core, I'm just not a huge fan of, man. The Deep Core is definitely something that I think belongs in the B tier. It's kind of just a middle-of-the-road kind of gun to me, and that's just how I feel about it. It's got some okay overclocks, but yeah, not an incredibly huge fan of Deep Core. Now, the Drac I just talked about. The Drac is S tier to me. This was my favorite weapon introduced in Season 1. This weapon was so incredibly fun to use. It still is. This is pretty much exclusively all I use on Scout. Again, unless I'm doing some weird niche off, kind of build. This weapon is so fun to use. There's a couple different ways to use it. It's super strong, and a lot of the overclocks on it are just really powerful. So the Drac, I love the weapon. I really love to heat it almost to max, swap to the jury rig boomstick, blast a couple enemies, and then when I swap back to the Drac, it's cooled down and ready to go again. This weapon just clears swaths of enemies. This thing really does do a great job of just cutting down hordes of glyphid grunts and everything that you really come across. And if you didn't know, it has a pretty good damage against armored enemies. So if you're just shooting a Praetorian just straight in the face of a horde, this thing is nuts. And one of my favorite things to do is throw down his IFG and just blast him with the bouncy bullets overclock. This thing is just incredible at clearing hordes of enemies, and really you can build it in a couple different ways, and it's just going to show you why it's such a good weapon. The last weapon for the Scout is the M1000 Classic. This weapon, if I'm putting this in the D tier, the M1000 is going to go in D tier. Disclaimer, I love the M1000. I think that it's a really cool, really interesting weapon, but it's kind of like the thing with the Drac and the Deep Core. Like, when one weapon is so cool and fun to use, it just automatically lowers the other weapons, because you can only use one of these weapons at a time for primaries. So out of all three of the Scouts, look, you got an S tier one, you got a B tier one, you got a D tier one. I am not going to ever touch the M1000, really. Again, another thing where it's like, if this is really, really off meta or, off something, I'm not touching the M1000. It's not the best weapon. This thing can be spec'd to do some insane amounts of damage and can be really fun in modes like Elimination. But other than that, the M1000 is just a very high skill cap weapon, and I like using it time to time just to feel like it's a different way of playing the game, because a lot of the weapons in the game are just these great weapons against hordes of enemies, and you're playing on Hazard 5 and you just got so many guys coming down at you. The M1000 is just kind of weird because it's a single shot kind of M1 grand futuristic thing. It's a cool weapon, but definitely not, I can't do that to it. I can't put it next to the Hurricane for me. I would much rather use this than the Hurricane. The M1000 is really good, but it's C tier for me. So next up, the Engineer, the Breach Cutter. All right, I'm just going to say this with the Engineer right now. Let's find out all of his secondaries. The Deep Core and the Shard Diffractor. So the Breach Cutter, the Shard Diffractor, and the Deep Core. Wow. The best secondaries in the game, all on one class. You cannot go wrong running any three of these weapons. They all have extremely versatile builds, extremely versatile overclocks, insane damage. If I had to take one of the three out of the group and say it's worse than the others, it'd be so difficult, man. The Shard Diffractor has that range. The Deep Core has that AoE. The Breach Cutter has just that kind of good mix. I think the Deep Core would be like an A tier, but Fat Boy being an overclock, if you haven't tried it, guys, throw on Fat Boy on the Deep Core or find that overclock, and as soon as you get it, use it. It is insane. It's so fun to use. I remember back when I started playing the game and I heard people talk about it, I was like, what the hell is this? I finally unlocked it and I used it. I'm like, oh my god. That's what people have been using to make radiation. This thing is nuts. The Breach Cutter, again, just a nuts, insanely fun weapon. Every single one of its overclocks are usable and fun. The Shard Diffractor is just a, generally speaking, amazing all-purpose weapon. I mean, you can clear out so many enemies, and it's so fun to use, too. So, same thing with the Deep Core, the PGL. It's just such a fun weapon to use, and that's the main thing with all these weapons in S tiers. They're just really fun to use. Let's go for the Engineer's primary. So, Lock 1 Smart Rifle. This weapon, to me, this is a C tier weapon for me. Because the Lock 1 burns through ammo extremely quick. Doesn't really have a lot of good overclocks in my opinion. Like, it has good clean overclocks, but it doesn't have any overclocks like the Neural Lasso. Like, that's an interesting one. The Executioner's an interesting one. The Chemical Rounds, it's interesting, but I don't know. My biggest problem with the Lock 1, I just feel like, is I'm always out of ammo with this thing. Like, if they gave it an extra couple mags, I think I could use this weapon and call it like in a B or an A tier even, but I'm constantly running out of bullets with the Lock 1. I don't know about you guys, but yeah. The Lock 1 almost feels better as well to just use it without locking on, you know? Like, I don't know. Maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm being an idiot and using it wrong. I'm sure there's a lot of people who are like, the Lock is the best weapon in the game for the Engineer. You're an idiot. I have some friends who will always vouch for the Lock 1. It's a great weapon, but to me, it's kind of on this average playing field where it's just like, it's good, but I'm not going to use it over the other weapons. I think it's a little too slow, too clunky, too niche, and not a lot of ammo. So, not a big fan of it. I'm going to pass up on that one. The Voltaic SMG. This is an A tier weapon for me. Yeah, A tier for sure. I really love this one, and a lot of people are going to be like, look, switch the Lock 1 and the Voltaic, and you're good. The Stubby is super fun to play. Has good ammo. You can make good ammo. The thing about the Voltaic that I like is there's so many good overclocks for it and so many interesting things to do with it, involving your turrets and whatnot. I just love the Voltaic. I think it's great. I think it's great to build it where you can shoot your turrets and give them an EMP on them, or you can even connect your turrets with an electric node. That's so cool. Or you can just build it to be a straight up insanely high damage SMG. Like, you can build this thing to have some high DPS, and a lot of people wouldn't believe it. So the Stubby is really fun. It's really good to use, and its range isn't incredible, but it's not that bad. And out of most of the weapons in his kit, I would say it's obviously better than the shotgun, but it's pretty good. I like the Stubby. I'm a big fan of it. The Warthog. I'm going to put the Warthog in A tier as well. I like the Warthog a lot. I don't want to say it's an S tier. Same with the Voltaic. Just because the Warthog is fun, it's good. But the Warthog is pretty limited, in my opinion, to the builds and the ways you can play it and the overclocks that are actually like reasonably viable on it, right? You have the Slug build with the Warthog, which is, it's good. It's kind of slow, but it's good. You have a full auto, high damage. It's good, but it's one of those things where it's like you're trading off so much ammo consumption that I don't know if it's necessarily worth it. The Warthog, like the auto shotgun, the problem is if you're not accurate with your shots and making sure every pellet lands where it needs to, you're blowing through a lot of ammo. I mean, because some guys, you'll have to shoot this thing 4 or 5 times to kill a single Grown on Hazard 5 if you're not aiming towards the weak spots. Because the pellets are going to be spreading so far across the Glyphid that you're not even going to be one-shotting him. So at that point, you're wasting a lot of bullets on single enemies. And yeah, that's not good. That's never good. But generally speaking, this is a pretty good standard weapon. It's not bad in any way, shape, or form. I love the Warthog, but can't say it's S tier quite. And last up, but certainly not least, I think this is people's... I don't know, is this the most favorited class? Let me know in the comments below what your favorite class is to play in Deep Rock and what your highest ranking class is. Currently, mine is the Engineer, so maybe yours is Driller. So we're going to go over the Driller's weapons. We got the Colette Wave Cooker, instant S tier for me. This weapon is so damn fun. At first, when it very first came out, I was like, how the hell do you use this thing? And then I realized, I'm like, wait a minute. You can either make enemies go through the blast freeze, or, you know, this kind of heat damage where if they get heat up too quick, if they're heated up too quick or they're cooled down and you kind of mix that move, you can do a lot of instant damage to them. You can see this being used on bulk detonators to like melt him. So if you have a full team that has fire in their kit, they can keep igniting him and then you can proc this and it will just start destroying. This thing has insane DPS. It's an insanely good weapon. The overclocks are a little spotty on it, but for the most part, this is a really good weapon. It's super unique. Gives Driller a lot of that range that he needed. My favorite way to play this is either, hey, slap on the flamethrower or slap on the cryo, particularly the cryo for me, and just swath down an entire group of enemies, you know, freeze them or light them on fire, and pull this out and just press the button for a second, and they'll all pop and blow up. It's crazy to see this thing work in action. I love the Wave Cooker. I think it was a great addition to the game. It's very fun to use. Super awesome when they revealed it. The flamethrower. Oh, man. If we're talking from the standpoint of, like, how good this is now with robots being in the game, because if you didn't know, if you heat a robot up to 100%, it instantly dies. So this is a really good weapon. Definitely not B tier and below. It's a fight between A and S tier for me. I'm going to put it in A just because comparatively to Cryo, I think Cryo is so much better. And the reason for that is Cryo will make you and your team do a lot more damage. Flamethrowers, they have a lot more niche. Obviously, depending on the biome that you're in, if you're on Glacial, the Flamethrower is going to do a ton of DPS. I love the Flamethrower. You can build it sticky or just for that face melter, just straight up pure damage. The Flamethrower is really fun to use. But the Cryo will stop an enemy in its tracks. The problem in the argument that quite a few people have against the Driller is, and I'm gonna talk about it when I talk about the Sludge Pump. Why light something on fire or slow it down and wait for it to come up to you if it's gonna still get up to you and get that hit off? You know what I mean? A lot of these weapons, like just any of them, like the jury-rigged boomstick, you shoot the enemy, it's dead. You shoot the enemy with a flamethrower, there's a chance that it lights on fire, yes, but it's not gonna burn to death instantly. It still can get that distance on you and potentially hit you and get damage off on you. So that makes the flamethrower and the sludge pump a little bit worse. And again, the cryo cannon, it's going to be helping your entire team. Now, the thing with the cryo cannon is a lot more characters in the game have weapons and overclocks that can light enemies ablaze. So the problem with the cryo is you're going to run into a lot more team differences. Whereas with the flamethrower, you really only have to worry about the scout and its cryo grenades going off. So, I mean, it's kind of a question of the trade-off there. Sludge pump. Sludge pump, to me, is a C-tier weapon. I really think that the sludge pump, if you're using it a lot, goes through ammo way too quickly. It's a really fun weapon to use. But the problem with the sludge pump is, it's on its own, it's kind of an awful weapon. Right? And I think that the sludge pump would be better if the Colette Wave Cooker had something to do with it a little bit more, but it really doesn't have the best synergy right now. I think if there's a little bit more introduced to the game, maybe the sludge pump will become better over time. But right now in the game, I don't think that the sludge pump is amazing. Now, you can light the sludge on fire, but it's almost like, why? Who's going to really do that besides the gunner if he's taking incendiary grenades? That's the only time the sludge pump I could say is, like, noticeably doing a lot more damage. The sludge pump's DPS is good. The problem with the sludge pump is it's just too slow, it's too clunky, and it's kind of odd to use, realistically. And then again, just like I was talking about with the Drac, comparatively, why would I use the sludge pump when the flamethrower and the cryo are so good? Really fun, awesome weapon to use, but it's super niche. And in my opinion, when you were talking about mission types, again, it's kind of like the M1000, where in elimination, the sludge pump can help you slow down a boss to like literally 0 speed. Like, they cannot move if they have enough effects on them. And the sludge pump's definitely one of the things where if they're trying to charge through that, they're not going to be able to move. So sludge pump can be good, very niche weapon, but I'm going to keep it in the C tier. That's where I think it belongs. Let's move on to the EPC. The Elemental Plasma Charger. For me, this is a D tier weapon. But for most people, I think they would put it in the A tier. Well, can I really diss this weapon that much? It's a D tier weapon for me for the reason that if you didn't know and you're a newer player, you can actually charge the EPC up and shoot the charge blast next to a mineral, and it will actually mine all those minerals. So you can actually, as a driller, mine nitra in a spot where like only a scout and an engineer combined could get to. So this is a really cool utility you can do. But just for that fact, I can't do it because I'm not that good. But there are definitely some drillers out there who can. And the problem is, beyond that, right? It goes through ammo insanely quick. It doesn't do a lot of DPS. It's super fun to use, though. I do love the weapon. I'm going to put it in C tier. Just because it's so fun to use. It is a really interesting weapon, but it's not amazing, in my opinion. I don't value it that high. And then the Subtua. Subtua is a B tier weapon to me. I think the Subtua is good. The problem with the Subtua is, again, just like we talked about, the Colette Wave cookers in the game. I love the Colette Wave cooker. I'm going to use it so much more with the Subtua and the EPC. Just because of that. The Subtua is good, but it's just a basic pistol. There's nothing really too special about it. The fully automatic version overclock, it's okay. It's pretty mediocre. The explosive reload, it's pretty mediocre. Like, the Subtua, it's a good weapon, but again, it's kind of like the Deep Core, where it's like, it's kind of mediocre, honestly. Like, it's not really my favorite weapon to use. It's really basic. It's not extremely fun. I'm not a huge fan of it. But yeah, that's just kind of how I feel. And let's just look real quick. How many guns do we have in the S tier? So we got quite a few. It looks like we've got one S tier weapon for the gunner. 1, 2, 3. 3 for the scout. 3 for the engineer. And 2 for the driller. So the scout and the engineer kind of tied up for that S tier. I don't know. I mean, it doesn't necessarily mean that the engineer and the scout are the best class in the game by any means, because I love both. I love all the classes. I'm going to come out and say that. All my classes I try to keep similarly ranked, just because I love trading off and playing different roles. I think they each play their own role, and each of their weapons play their own role. Like I said, there's people out there who are going to say, as soon as I put the Hurricane Rocket in D, they're going to be like, what the fuck? It says tier. To me, personally, this is my list, and I believe the Hurricane is a D tier weapon. That's just me. But yeah, guys, that's what I think about the weapons in Deep Rock Galactic. Let me know and drop a couple likes on this if you enjoyed the video remotely. I'm thinking about doing an overclocks tier list, or a tier list for the biomes, tier list for the missions maybe. There's quite a few on tiermaker.com. I'll link it in the description below, so that way you can check it out and maybe do some of your own tier lists and see where things stand on yours. That's going to be it for me today, guys. I want you all to have a good one, and peace!